Hello there, good evening indeed, and thank you for joining us on Rwanda Television News tonight. We do hope you had yourselves a fruitful day. And now, this is what is coming up on our edition tonight. The European Union has reviewed its commitment to supporting refugees evacuated from Libya through funding the Emergency Transit Mechanism Center in Rwanda from 2022 to 2026. Travelers from different East African community countries appreciate the decision taken by the heads of state to connect communication networks, as it has reduced the cost of calling and answering in the region. We are very glad to have your company tonight, coming to you straight from the heart of Africa, Kigali. My name is Sam Kalisa. As we kick it off, travelers from different East African community countries appreciate the decision by the EAC heads of state to connect communication networks, as it has reduced the cost of calling and answering. Meanwhile, there are member states that have regulations that keep the cost of making phone calls very high. We have the story with Jessica Agasaro.
The decision to consolidate telecommunication network aimed at reducing the cost of making and receiving calls using mobile phones in the East African community member countries was taken by the heads of the state of the member countries and slated to be implemented from July 2016. Rwanda, Uganda, Kenya, and South Sudan are the countries that have come to the fore in the implementation of the decision. Julius Kemei and Timothy Njoroge, both truck drivers, are very proud of it.
Direct call to Kenya ni sawa. Hata tunaona hiyo ni furaha na communication.
Direct call to Kenya, it makes us happy because communication is what develops the country's economy. So if you are in Kenya or Rwanda, it's like we are in the same country. Now that I have talked to people at home and we can talk directly, it's a pleasure for us.
Direct call. So hiyo ni furaha yetu.
Among the countries that have not yet implemented the same communication network agreement are Burundi and Tanzania. It's a barrier to communication between those countries, explained by those who were affected by this.
Calling in Burundi is still an issue. Once you cross the border, no one can reach to you anymore, or he has to have an airtime in his phone, so it becomes costly for both of us. That's when we call each other, but if he doesn't have airtime, and it will not go through.
In her address to the plenary session of the Chamber of Deputies in the Rwandan Parliament, the Minister of ICT and Innovation, Paula Ingabire, said that the proposal to establish a single communication network was intended to facilitate the residents of the countries.
Iyo umuturage yisanze atangiye kurominga kuri network yo hakurya, ibiciro bikazamuka, biba imbogamizi yo kuba yabona ya service inoze.
When a citizen found themselves roaming with another country's network and the price goes up, it becomes a challenge for them to receive a good communication services. This is why we had an effort of putting one area network to help us reduce the prices, even those moving around the East African community without changing their SIM card doesn't face up any challenges. I think only 2 countries hasn't implemented the one area network agreement, and it's still an issue for us, which are Burundi and Tanzania. We keep reminding them, but it is beneficial to us and among them. This agreement to connect the communication network between Rwanda, Kenya, and Uganda went from $0.93 to $1.1, and the goal is that the cost of calls between the countries will reach $1. Jessica Agasaro, RwandaTV News.
The European Union has renewed its commitment to supporting refugees evacuated from Libya through funding the Emergency Transit Mechanism Center in Rwanda from 2022 to 2026. Adam Squizera has the full report.
Gabriel Mariam, generally Gemai, from Ethiopia, fled to Libya, where her hope was laid to cross the Mediterranean Sea from Libya to Europe illegally. Gabriel Mariam says that at that time, the life they were living with her husband in Libya was miserable, but later they were brought to Rwanda. Within 2 years living in Rwanda, Gabriel Mariam has given birth to a child.
Rwanda and KNSG had a campus.
She's saying in Rwanda, I'm here in the camp.
It has been almost 2 years since 2019 when Rwanda government signed a memorandum of understanding with the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees and the African Union to rescue refugees and asylum seekers from Libya. Later, the European Union involved in those agreements were in the first phase. European Union pledged almost 12.5 million euros. The country representative of the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, Aissatu Ndiaye, pointed out on the impacts of this support to the development and well-being of these refugees in this camp.
Having this additional funding from the EU is really a very good solution for us. It helps us to extend the services that we have been doing for the past 4 years. Since 2019, we have been benefiting from this funding.
On Thursday, the European Union has announced a 22 million euros support package to the Emergency Transit Mechanism in Rwanda, operated by the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees and the government of Rwanda until 2026. Calvalo Uyara, the country representative of the European Union, knows down on how this support package will benefit those asylum seekers and refugees.
It allows for those people who are stuck in detention centers in Libya or to access, to be resettled in the European Union territory or in other countries like the US and Canada and others.
Launching the second phase of this support package for these asylum seekers and refugees from Libya, the permanent secretary in the ministry in charge of emergency management, Habinshuti Philippe, also expressed on how the country will benefit from this partnership.
Some other refugees and some other people who are still struggling in Libya and that would wish to benefit from these services. So this partnership will allow this center to continue receiving and assisting and protecting new evacuees from Libya.
The United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees has evacuated about 1,500 refugees and asylum seekers out of Libya to Rwanda since 2019. Of this, over 900 of them have departed for settlement and other complementary legal pathways. Adam Squizera, RTV News.
According to the Ministry of Local Government, 10,957 opinions have been received from residents since 2018 about the planning of programs that are intended to improve their well-being. There are some of those opinions that have not been put into practice or implemented due to lack of resources. We do have the detailed report with Olive Nete.
Some residents say that some of the infrastructure they see has been established without the need to give their opinion during the planning process.
For example, the road to Nyechonga is poorly constructed. They did not inform us about the planning process.
Recently, the Parliament's Committee on Social Affairs visited various districts of the city of Kigali. It was a visit aimed at evaluating the role of residents in the planning of the activities that are carried out for their development. After this visit, on this Thursday, the Minister of Local Government, Jean-Claude Musabyimana, met with this committee for them to give him a report of the outcomes of the visit. Some of the statements made by the senators include the fact that residents do not participate in giving opinions about activities usually carried out for their well-being.
The problem of residents do not provide opinions that are needed in the planning of districts.
Following the presentation of this report, the Minister of Local Government, Jean-Claude Musabyimana, pointed out that some opinions were not carried out due to limited resources. However, he notes that there is still something that should be done.
The issue is that sometimes residents' opinions are beyond of the available resources, but particularly for addressing this issue, we need to work on how we provide feedback.
According to the Ministry of Local Government, 10,957 resident opinions have been submitted since 2018. The most opinions were received during 2018-2019 fiscal year, totaling 4,187, while 448 were sent during the previous fiscal year. Olive Nete, RTV News.
Thank you, Oli, for the report. And as we move ahead, the National Electoral Commission says that effective tomorrow, Friday, 10th of February 2022 in Rwanda, elections will begin to replace the positions that are no longer having leaders in regional councils or district councils, even in the national councils, including the National Women's Council, the National Youth Council, and the National Council of Persons with Disabilities. The Executive Secretary of the National Electoral Commission, Munyaneza Charles, noted that those who will be replaced are those who were elected in October and November 2021, but are currently no longer in the positions due to the fact that they have been given other appointments or appointed to other positions or jobs, those who have gone to study abroad and will stay there for a long time, and those who moved from their place of residence to foreign countries.
We have elections in 9 districts. Huye in the Eastern Province. In the Western Province, we have Karongi District, Nyamasheke and Rutsiro. In the North, we have Burera and Rulindo. And in Eastern, we have Ngoma and Bugesera. And also in Kigali, we have elections in the Committee of Youth Council. And starting from tomorrow, there will be elections at the provincial level in vacant places. In the National Women's Council and the National Council of Persons with Disabilities operating in those provinces. And on 11th, there will be elections in vacant places of the National Youth Council.
Furthermore, the Executive Secretary of the National Electoral Commission pointed out that the elections will be held at direct elections with the participation of all residents, and that there are values or characters that should be that should characterize those who want to be elected to different positions.
Everyone who wants to present residents has to be characterized by some values. Someone in the Council of District is a person with an important role. The first thing is to be a person of integrity. Second, when they are vying for the position, discipline is required. They should not insult each other. They should not vie for the positions without having discriminations, and they should be honest, so that when elected, they should be leaders that represents people.
Now, moving ahead, on Thursday, the Speaker of the Chamber of Deputies, Honorable Donatil Mukabalisa, received the Ambassador of Sierra Leone in Rwanda, Her Excellency Isatu Aminata Bundu. Discussions focused on the relations between the two countries and the interaction and collaboration of the parliaments of the two countries.
Discussions have been really the relations between our two countries, Sierra Leone and Rwanda, especially relations between our two sister parliaments, as well as bilateral relations between the two countries, consultations and collaborations within the IPUs and also within the parliamentary systems that we have.
The Speaker of the Chamber of Deputies, Honorable Donatil Mukabalisa, pointed out that based on the relationship between the two countries, various groups from Sierra Leone have been received where they came to learn from Rwanda. She also noted that they established a group that includes people from both parliaments, all for the benefits of the residents of the two countries they represent.
We have had the opportunity to discuss with the Speaker of the Parliament of Sierra Leone while he came for various conferences that took place here, such as the conference that joined the Speakers of Parliaments of English-speaking countries and the 145th Interparliamentary Assembly that happened last year. During all those various conferences, we had the opportunity to discuss on how we can further improve the relationship between the two countries through parliamentary diplomacy, and we are content about that. We also established a friendly team between the Parliament of Rwanda and the Parliament of Sierra Leone, and all of that aims to increase the cooperation and learning from each other and see how to improve our performance and cooperation, but all for the benefits of the residents we represent.
Moving ahead, on a Thursday, the Ministry of National Unity and Civic Engagement, in partnership with the Catholic Church, officially launched the Unity and Resilience Program, which will be implemented in 3 districts of the country, namely Nyarugenje, Gakenke, and Rudindo districts. Jessica Gasaro explores more.
The project will be implemented through the cooperation of the Ministry of National Unity and Civic Engagement in collaboration with the Catholic Church and the Commission for Justice and Peace, which aims to strengthen the construction of Rwandan through healing the wound of the hurt, unity, peace, and learning. This project is expected to strengthen unity and reconciliation after the genocide against the Tutsi, to educate families and households with problems of family conflict and other things as described by the coordinator of Justice and Peace Commission. Looking at those who have different problems together will be a crisis. If there's a serious conflict or the consequence they are facing, we also work together for those with different problems, and we also with the families who already have a good way of living together. So there is an increase in the existing institution that already exists to help them in healing with different issues. The permanent secretary in the Ministry of Rwanda Unity and Civic Engagement, Munezero Clarisse, explained in depth the reason of this project and what it will help. The first reason we thought about this is that the duties of the Union is to establish and publicize, to implement measures that help to see clearly in order to heal the wounds that come from distorting the history of Rwandans, and to restore culture, unity, and peace in Rwanda through education, discussion, and the family levels, on the level of education and civic society, the level of organization based on consent, the level of public institutions, and the level of private sectors. One of the things that we want from this project is to help us by connecting the efforts that are already there in the matter of repairing the hearts. Arc Antoine Kambanda says that if Rwanda as a country and as a family of God joins together in this plan to strengthen unity and integrity for Rwandans, they will be planning to give young people a good country that will never see itself in the same problem that Rwanda has gone through, including the genocide committed against Tutsi and others.
When you see someone suffering more than you, overcome your pain and help him, it's healing and empowering. So looking back and examining it opens the door to sustained development for each and every one of us. Then we're starting this project. We hope that you will help us to continue sharing with your friends the good things we have achieved in this program of unity and integrity, and we will consider also where we came from and where we want to go as well. Sharing the life we will have will help us to give our children a good legacy for their future and live in the country they want to live in.
Apart from the activities of the community and promoting the culture of good living together, it is planned that this project of unity and integrity and other activities will be carried out to help people to develop and continue to strive for a good image of the country. Jessica Gasaro, RwandaTV News.
The Ministry of Trade and Industry has announced that 82 private industries across the country have been permanently closed due to mismanagement. Some of the reasons given include the fact that they established them unprepared. Residents that live near these industries suggest that business plans should be conducted before they are invested or established because they take or spend a lot of money. Olive Nete with more.
It is a factory that produces oil from sunflower seeds and palm seeds located in Bugesera district. Every day, it processes 30 tons of this oil, but it is expected to expand, where it plans that it will process 200 tons of this oil. According to the authorities of this factory, they are putting efforts into increasing production, even though they still have various challenges.
It depends on the situation at the market, but at times we fail to take the production at the market due to lack of raw materials. But most of the times we make it. Most of the times we get raw materials from Malaysia and Indonesia, and it passes through Mombasa support, and then we get it. and process the production of oil used by residents. We request that the government finds a way to encourage residents to cultivate the raw materials. We may not need to find 100%, but we can at least find 20% of it, and that 20% would assist us even on the GDP.
However, across the country, there is a problem of established industries that lacked what to process and closed their doors, including those that operate below their capacity and those with poor management. For example, the factory in Gicumbi district, which was supposed to process sunflower and extract oil from them, but it's been more than 15 years since it closed its doors, and the machines started to deteriorate, as well as the factory of Matchbox in Huye district. Residents that live nearby these industries and those who expected to receive productivity from them say that this is a big problem that should be addressed because there is invested money that should have been used in other activities.
In a short period of time, they processed sunflowers, and they even encouraged us to cultivate sunflowers. But people didn't cultivate it, and then they used sunflowers. They had to produce oil, but after, they didn't continue to produce the oil because they lacked farmers to cultivate those flowers. And if you had been able to cultivate the sunflowers, the factory would have continued to produce oil, but the factory closed.
For more than 2 months, the Ministry of Trade and Industry has been conducting an in-depth inspection of industries that have problems in operations, management, and those that closed doors. Evald Murindangaka, the Acting Director General of the Industry Promotion and Entrepreneurship Development, reiterates on the reasons that led to the closure of these industries.
Aho usanga abantu bishyiraga hamwe ariko umwe muri bo cyangwa babiri muri bo
people used to join efforts to establish a factory, and you find that one of them mismanages the finance of the factory, and that would lead to losses. And sometimes you will speak to people and they won't point fingers at people who mismanage the finances of factories and leads to its closure. And the various issues revealed is that some of those factories didn't have the capacity to compete with what other factories around the region. And third, we also noticed that some factories didn't have working capitals, and it seemed that they were not prepared enough. We are currently looking at various ways we can use to help these industries that closed to work with financial institutions in the recovery process.
Currently in Rwanda, there are about 1,118 industries that process agricultural products, factories of construction, factories of chemicals, and other materials. Olive Nete, RTV News.
And on behalf of the entire news production as well as the technical team, thank you for being with us on this edition of Rwanda Television News. Until next time, stay safe and have a great evening.